Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. If you know my channel, I have a series on how I got into my favorite artists. I actually call it my first underscore albums. So I have done, 7 videos. I did the Rolling Stones, The Who, The Kinks, Led Zeppelin, Genesis, Wishbone Ash, and The Grateful Dead. So there are 7 videos under my first blank albums. I've gotten a couple of requests recently from different people saying, hey, can you go back to that series and do more videos on how you got into some of your favorite artists? I am a huge fan of Jethro Tull, and I think this might be a bit surprising because as much as I love Tull, and they are one of my favorite bands for sure, it took me a while to get into Jethro Tull. They were not immediate for me, so it might be surprising, and I hope that you'll find this an interesting video. So how did I get into Jethro Tull? Well, my sister's 4 years older, and as far as my memory, she only had one Jethro Tull album that I remember, and that was Aqualong on vinyl. That great album cover. It originally came with the lyrics sheet in there, and because she would borrow my albums, I would also borrow her albums. And in fact, would tape them, and I taped Aqualong on 8-track. So I got to know Aqualong really well. The other thing was back then, and we are talking, Aqualong came out in 71, so it was probably around like 74 or so that I was listening to Aqualong. I was only 11 years old. And Aqualong, Locomotive Breath, and Hymn 43 were getting lots of FM radio play back then. Even Hymn 43 with that amazing riff. Really, I used to hear it all the time. So I was like, this is a really cool band. And when I would listen to Aqualong, I loved the sequencing. You know, Aqualong goes into Cross-Eyed Mary, amazing track. That also got radio play. But then you'd have the acoustic stuff, Cheap Day Return, Mother Goose, Wondering Aloud. You know, obviously it's Aqualong, one of the all-time great albums by anybody. And that was my introduction to Jethro Tull through my sister. But that's all that she had. At that time, and so we're talking about 1974, I was 11, Bungle in the Jungle from War Child got a lot of FM radio play. It was a hit, and I loved it. Didn't pick up War Child, though, at the time, but I loved Bungle in the Jungle. That was just a favorite song. I was like, that is just so great. And I felt the same way 2 years later in 1976 when Tull had an FM hit with Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die. Couldn't get enough of that song. I used to pray that the radio would play either of those two songs, and I would just get off on it so much. But I didn't buy either of those albums back then. Again, I was only 13 in 1976. So at that time, I only got Aqualong like on 8-track, courtesy of my sister. Then what happened was, it's now 1977. It's early 77. My birthday's February. It was right around then, and Tull was releasing a new album, Songs from the Wood. And at that time, there was a cool radio station. They had a thing called Ralph's Rare Room, and they would play B-sides that you would never hear. And they played this track called Strip Cartoon, which was the B-side of The Whistler, which was the original single from Songs from the Wood. And I thought that was the greatest song. I'm like, I got to get into Tull. So I was a member of Columbia House Record Club. I ordered Songs from the Wood right when it came out. So I think it came out around February, March of 77. I got it early in 77, that's for sure. I fell in love with Songs from the Wood. It's my first Tull album that I ever got on my own, and I loved that album. And to this day, I still say it's my favorite, most played Tull album. It's a perfect album for me, that acoustic kind of Tull, rustic. I love that sound. Then later on in the year, for the holidays, I guess it was, towards the end of the year, I asked my mom that I wanted 2 Jethro Tull albums, and she got me both of them. It was MU, The Best of Jethro Tull, which originally came out, I guess, in 76 or something like that, or 70, 75, 76. And I also wanted Repeat, The Best of Jethro Tull Volume 2, which came out in 77. I got both of these at the exact same time, courtesy of my mom and dad, for a gift. And I just love these 2 albums. I only have the CDs now, but I remember the original vinyl. MU came with a poster, which I think I still have downstairs. even though I don't have the vinyl anymore. And I thought these were amazing CDs, best of. I still love them to this day. They each had like an unreleased track. Rainbow Blues on MU was amazing. I'm like, how did that song, not make an album at that time? Such a great track. And then this had Glory Row. But now I finally got Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die on record at the time, and I finally got Bungle in the Jungle, so I could play it whenever I wanted. But I really, really was falling for Jethro Tull in a big way. 1977 was the year for me for Tull, with Songs from the Wood, MU, The Best of Jethro Tull, and Repeat, The Best of Jethro Tull, Volume 2. I'm really falling for this band. Now we get into 1978. I am walking around in the flea market some point of the year, and the flea market would sell bootleg vinyl at the time. This is still in the vinyl time, 1978, and all of a sudden I see an album called Bursting Out Live, Jethro Tull on vinyl. Didn't even know it was coming out. This was before the internet, 1978, and how old am I? I'm 15. And I buy it at the flea market right then and there, and I thought it was such a great double live album. I absolutely loved it. And this was 1978, so now I got Songs from the Wood, the two best ofs. I got Bursting Out, and I got Aqualong. And that's what I got in 1978 from Tull, and I'm considering myself a fan. But an interesting thing happened. I didn't get any more Tull albums. That was it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got like 5 Tull albums at that time, and it was like enough for me. I thought they were great. They were totally unique, but I just moved on to lots of other artists. 1985, for whatever reason, on vinyl, I probably got a good deal. I got the original Masters best of, but I didn't really play it all that much because, most of it I already had, but it was nice to have Witch's Promise and a couple of other tracks, Life's a Long Song. But that wasn't a major purchase for me, that's for sure. That's pretty much the end of Jethro Tull for me for a long time. In fact, until 1988. So we go from 1978 to 1988, 10 years where I don't pick up any Tull pretty much, except for Original Masters. And what happened was in 1988, Jethro Tull puts out their 20 years of Jethro Tull collection. And what started it for me was the single CD. This one right here. This compilation from the box set right there absolutely changed my life. I just fell in love with Jethro Tull all over again. I just could not believe how amazing they were. And that was in 1988. From then on, now I start digging into Tull. I get the box set. I actually bought it on vinyl. I had the original one on vinyl. That's the CD version. And this became one of my most played favorite box sets of all time. Still is to this day. And as you can see, I have all the Tull box sets, although I'm waiting on the Still Living in the Past one. And I don't have the Christmas one as well. That's hard to get here in the U.S. But that one blew me away and changed my life. And now I go back in time and I wind up getting a lot of the ones that I'm missing, but latter-day ones, interestingly. I didn't go back to the beginning. So what was I getting at that time? I was getting things like Heavy Horses, and I was getting a little, you know what I got that was brand spanking new? I bought it when it came out, was the live one, the Little Light Music. That was a really good one, that acoustic one. I picked that one up when it came out. That was a good one. And I started backtracking. I'd get like A, and I would get Broadsword on the Beast. And I was going back in time to Tull, but recent ones up to that point. And then it was only after that I really went back in time, and started getting all those early classic ones that I had never picked up, like Benefit and Thick as a Brick and things like that. So that's my story with Jethro Tull. Now, as of today, I consider Jethro Tull one of my favorite bands. I actually have, as of today, 84 Jethro Tull albums. I have all of them. A couple of versions of some of them for sure. And that doesn't include 9 Ian Anderson solo records as well. I am a really, really big Tull fan. I'm always screaming every year that how are they not in the Hall of Fame? They're my number one pick for artist that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. That's not. But over the years, of course, I've gotten rid of most of the vinyl. It's all been, I reproduced, got them on CD, digitally remastered CD, and then all the box sets, as you can see. And I got some cool things here. In addition, that you might find interesting, here is a record store day of North Sea Oil. Got Elegy on there, one of the most beautiful melodies you'll ever hear in your life. Here's a 12-inch of Part of the Machine that you don't see every day. Here's an original bootleg from Trademark of Quality, Hand in Glove. Maybe you never saw that. Here's a King Biscuit Flower Hour vinyl of Jethro Tull. And then, of course, I didn't get these when they first came out, but these are early pressings of Passion Play, which I got, decades and decades ago. But here's Passion Play on vinyl. That one I always kept, and this is a really early pressing also of Thick as a Brick. And this one I'll never get rid of because it just speaks for itself how cool this is. This is a really early pressing of that album. And here's another bootleg called Ticketron from the Thick as a Brick tour. And here's an original of Living in the Past. Again, I got all of these late 80s or really early 90s. So again, I was late to the game with Jethro Tull. And here's a really cool import version of This Was Jethro Tull. So this is not a version that you see every day. So the point being, you never know when you're going to fall in love with a band, right? Steve Harold, who is finally getting into the Rolling Stones a little bit, you never know what could happen to you. Again, it took me 10 years after the initial run of Jethro Tull for me to really go crazy into Tull in 1988 because of that 20 years box set. And they did the 25 years, and that wasn't as good, but great packaging. Anyway, I'd love to know your story with Jethro Tull. Do you like them? Are you an Ian Anderson fan? Certain eras of the band do you like more? I would say my favorite era of Jethro Tull would be Songs from the Wood and Heavy Horses and Stormwatch and Bursting Out. That whole period is just amazing. But I love pretty much all the periods of Tull, and I always say they're one of the most special bands of all time because no matter whatever your mood is, if you like Jethro Tull, you could pretty much listen to them because they cover all the bases. There's blues, and there's folky, and there's progressive like Thick as a Brick, and Passion Play, and there's electronic like Under Wraps, and Broadsword to a certain extent, and A. And there's acoustic Tull. I mean, you can pretty much listen to Tull, depending on your mood, anytime. And that's a wonderful quality to have in a band. Stones are like that for me as well. So let me know what your thoughts are. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a series I'll do some more on. I think it's kind of fun to go back in time. And because I have my database, I know exactly what order, when I bought every album by every artist, and when I bought them, and pretty much how much I played them. So that's all in my database. So it's very accurate. So I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think. If you're new to my channel, hit subscribe. You can go to playlists. If you like this playlist, which again I call my first _ albums, which is basically how I got into some of my favorite artists. Anyway, as always, thanks so much. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time on the Alan Rosenberg Show.